And with us right now, we've got Lorena Tomasini. Lorena, thank you so much for joining us. You're the owner of MALM Life and Health Insurance, and you're the host of 12-Minute Talks podcast. Of course, MALM Insurance is found on the web at malmins.com. Lorena, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on, Josh.
Lorena, when did you get into the insurance industry? If I understand correctly, was your mom in the space first?
Yeah, so my mom actually started in insurance before I was even born. So my mom, since like 1980, has been doing insurance. And I started doing insurance about 13 years ago when I was in college. At the time, it was more of a part-time thing, so I could have flexibility in my schedule and go to school full-time. But I really fell in love with the industry and the benefits that it provides to families and business owners. So it's just what I've been doing for the past 13 years.
So you've been in the industry for quite some time, and I'm curious. Number one, kind of what do you see as an occupation for somebody, right? And so someone's saying, well, I want to get into insurance. I wonder what the attrition rate is. And then also, I wonder what the average insurance professional makes, like in their first year, or kind of their first 5 years. Can you give me like, what is a career outlook for someone who's looking to get into the industry?
So as an industry, it's very known for a lot of high turnover because it's not an easy job, right? It's a lot of rejection. But I feel like that comes with any job, whether you do insurance or something else. Rejection is part of it. But I feel in insurance, it's even more so because you have to overcome a lot of misconceptions that people have, and it's a lot of education on our end as well. Not just, oh, hey, you don't have any life insurance, you should get some, right? So it's really explaining to people so they can understand more so than just because if you pass away, why it's important. But I would say somebody starting out, statistically, the first few years, an average insurance agent makes about $40,000 a year, and there's two routes in insurance. You can do the traditional face-to-face type of sales, and that also means a lot of miles and a lot of time away from home, right? And then more modern approaches would be doing things over the phone or the computer. So it's just really deciding how you're comfortable working, and then if you want to work for one company as an employee, or if you want to work for yourself. So there's a lot of opportunity in the insurance industry, but you have to have the right mindset. I think that's really important.
So Lorena, you and your mother have created an agency that, I mean, again, we kind of talked about off before this conversation. You've written a few policies over the years. Do you mind sharing kind of, we'll kind of start from there and then we'll figure out, well, how have you done all that activity?
Yeah. So we focus a lot on health insurance, but that's really only part of the year because open enrollment is usually from November to December 15th for individuals here in the United States. So during that time period, in about 6 weeks, we're able to help over 500 families. And overall, for the past 7 years, which is how long like the Affordable Care Act has been going on, we've helped over 1,000 families for sure in a very short time period. So that takes a lot of organization and so forth that I'm sure we'll talk about further. And then on the life insurance side, we've helped quite a few families as well and business owners get that protection going.
So Lorena, what is it that you do to get the kind of volume that you've been able to get? I think a lot of people are, they're going to these little networking meetings and they're going to these, meetings where I forget what they're called, where you're supposed to refer people to each other. I see a lot of insurance professionals doing that sort of thing. And that's I'm sure you've done plenty of networking in your time, but where would you say you get the majority of your business?
That's a great question. So I would say definitely try out different things until you find what works for you. Personally, I don't like networking events. I don't really drink, so like getting a free drink to go talk to people is not my thing. And that atmosphere at networking events is very like hustle mentality, and hey, what do you do? But people don't really care what you do. Um, and then the referral groups, those are interesting, but they're very like, for me, they're too business oriented. Like, so I like that's not really for me. But if I hadn't gone and tried it, I wouldn't know if that was for me or not. So
Hmm.
I say, hey, try it out until you find what works for you. But for me, I really like, most of my clients come from word of mouth. A lot of it is from my existing clientele because they like how I work with them and so forth. So they just refer me to their friends or family. But also, you need to think outside of the box. And one thing that has helped me a lot is getting referrals from other professionals, whether in the insurance industry or other fields, that we share similar clients or people that I would like to be introduced that I could help them.
Not
So,
most insurance professionals are likely not getting a lot of referrals because they're relying on the same old, the greatest thanks you can ever give me is a referral. And like, what are you doing? So that,
right.
because I just don't know that a lot of people want to give up their friends and family just so somebody can write some business for them.
Yeah, exactly. I phrase that in a way that's different. It's like, hey, if you know anybody I can help, like how I've helped you, right? Please give them my name, number, and like that. And that does work. But you also need to do things differently, especially if you're talking with other professionals. They're always, you have to come at it from what's in it for them. Because they're not just going to give you their book of business or refer you a client if it's not something that can really help that client of theirs with something that maybe they don't do, right? I call it an added value service. So, what's an added value service that you can provide um, to that profession? Yeah.
Um,
Especially with insurance, we can't give kickbacks or things like that. Kickback is, hey, you refer me a client, and if they buy, I'm going to give you part of the commission or whatever, right? Here in Florida, at least, that's a big no-no. So if somebody refers me, somebody that eventually becomes a client, thank you, I appreciate your referral, and let's see how else we can work together. But we can't split commission at all.
Right. So my speculation then is that you're just doing a lot of activity in order to build up that book of business. It's not just, so if you're networking and exchanging business with lots of other professionals, my suspicion is that you have a pretty big network of people that now know what you do. If you have that many people referring business to you, how did you do
Exactly.
that?
Oh, yeah, through the years, like I said, I've been doing this for 13 years. So you try this and you try that until you find what works for you. Um, but how I've been able to do that is just follow up, because just like I'm busy, that other professional is also busy, and they're not going to keep me top of mind unless I make that weekly phone call or every 2 weeks or whatever the case might be. So it's definitely a lot of follow up and just being like, hey, remember, this is how I can help your client with XYZ, right? So and not just thinking because this person told you, oh yeah, I'm going to start referring you clients, that they're going to do that. So if you have like a realtor referring you business, for example, hey, if that works, find another 10 realtors, and maybe out of those 10, you'll get two realtors, and like that. So
And
it's really a numbers game, just like anything else, right? If you need to make one sale a week, well, I don't know, maybe you need to talk to 100 people to make that happen, right? And the only way you're going to learn is through experience at the end of the day.
yeah. Okay. So what is so a couple of things here. Again, I'm trying to dig to figure out what is your secret here. And so it sounds like you do like a lot of professional networking.
Mm-hmm.
And now you also have, and then you also have a very, very great follow-up that you do with them, if I heard you correctly.
Correct.
So you're reaching out to a lot of other professionals. This is interesting because I think a lot of people are doing their own, like they're doing ads, they're doing bus ads, and they're buying like all this advertisement on bus benches and
Right.
all this other stuff. But it sounds like you are spending most of your time thinking, who are all the professionals that I can get to know what I do? And so you've come up with an outreach where it makes sense for them to talk with you for a little bit. What is your message that you share? And so you spend your time on professional networking as opposed to just advertising directly to consumers. Would that be fair to say?
That would be fair to say. During certain times of the year, yes, I do advertising, but it's more online advertising. But besides that, yeah, the professional network is really important. And for me, again, I avoid networking events because I feel like that's the least that
Yeah,
you do. You just get
me
all
too.
these business cards
You're
and
not
nice
alone. Ugh.
posters, you know. When I have gone to networking events, I go with a purpose. Like, okay, I want to talk to 5 people and actually reach out to them afterwards. But I feel like networking events here in Miami, at least, I have to drive to the place, find parking. It's not my way of doing it. So I just reach out to people over the phone, and that's just how I've been able to do it. Some people like the face-to-face interaction, and that's perfectly fine. It's everything about how you want to do it.
Mm,
But for me, I like to think about what type of people would be my perfect client,
mhm.
right? And then who else works with those perfect quote unquote clients, right? To make it easier. Because if not, I'm just throwing things into the air and hoping that something will stick. And it doesn't mean that I don't work with people that are not my perfect client, because to me, if I can help somebody, that's my goal at the end of the day, right? Even if they don't fit into my little check boxes, right? Let's say. But I definitely try that, at least 80% of my business is that perfect client that leads to bigger revenue and all the numbers that people like.
Mhm. What is your message that you use when you reach out to other professionals hoping to network together? Because everyone's busy. So why would someone say, "Oh, okay, I'll give up 15 minutes of my time or 30 minutes of my time to chat with Lorena Tomasini"? What are you asking to in order to get that meeting?
Yeah, I tell them, have you thought about offering your clients additional services that you don't really need to do the work, but you will look as more of a professional in their eyes because you're referring them to another professional, right? So, it's like that statistic that says that if you buy 2 or 3 things from the same person, you're more likely to stick with them,
Right.
right? So if you're a realtor, for example, the most you can do is sell somebody a house. But if you're now seen as more of a resource to that client, they're gonna think about you as, hey, that's that realtor that hooked me up with Lorena that provided me peace of mind with my life insurance. And hey, that realtor also referred me to somebody else. So when that person is ready to sell their house or buy another house or whatever the case might be, they're going to go back to that realtor because not only did you help them with that one transaction, but you helped them out with the carpenter or with the electrician or whatever the case might be,
Mhm.
right? So it's how else can you add value to that client, right? And
Yeah.
it might be something you're not necessarily going to see a monetary value from, but it's like how they talk about what's the lifetime value of that client, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want if there's an agency owner that's listening to this, the same thing happens in agencies. So if you're an SEO agency owner and someone says, hey, we really need social media help. Do you know anybody? And if you're just if your response to all of that is always like, nope, I don't know, I just kind of do my thing, you don't really come across as very resourceful. You don't come across as very connected. And I just don't
Exactly.
think that I think it damages your perceived authority. If you're just kind of quietly in your own corner doing your own little SEO work, that's great to
Mm-hmm.
be really good at what you do. But I think if we're truly advocating for our clients, our customers, we want to be that resource. And so, Lorena, it sounds like that's been your approach. And I would imagine, Lorena, I could probably ask you about any about any professional service, particularly regionally, and you're in South Florida, and you could probably give me a name of someone. I got the perfect person for you to talk with. Is
Right.
that correct?
That's correct. And I'm also the type of person that if I don't, I will find one for you that I like, be like, hey,
Wow.
reach out to this person. So,
It really is. So as professionals, it's so important that we network together, that we get to know who truly provides great value. Go ahead and vet those service providers in your industry, because your customers are going to trust you, and they're going to trust that you kind of know what you're talking about. And Lorena, I'm sure that there's people that you've come across that you've also said, ooh, I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable in referring people to them because I don't agree with the way that they do business, or I don't particularly care for, that line of, those service lines, for example, and you don't think that they're very ethical or a good
right.
fit for most consumers. And
Mhm.
so you, in a sense, you truly are vetting those professionals for your clients.
Exactly. So they don't have to do the heavy lifting, right? I know that if I'm going to refer them to so and so, this is how they're going to treat them. They're going to return their call in a timely manner, and so forth. Because I see how people treat me. So I
Yeah.
think, well, if I were to refer this client, would I like that type of service for them? Not
Yeah.
necessarily, right? Or yes, oh, this person is great. And that's only something you're going to know, not from an initial phone call, but also as the months and the weeks pass by. That you do your follow up and you do all that type of stuff.
You,
Um,
yeah, you think about the power of influencer marketing and why it works so well. And that is just because, people like recommendations. And so, not too long ago, I saw the movie 1917, and I absolutely
mhm.
loved it. And I raved about it on Facebook. And I had a lot of people respond to that post and say, oh, good, I'm going to go see it. Or, oh, yeah, it looked really good. Thanks. People love recommendations. And if you can do
Yeah,
so, without, like you said, you don't get kickbacks. It's just if the audience you're serving is your consumer, and you're willing to make those recommendations regardless of your benefit, knowing that the better you can serve your clients, the more, it's going to be good for everybody. It's a win-win-win, as they say.
exactly. Yeah. And that's how I like to look at my business, right? Whether I'm offering something to a business owner, right? How can what I'm offering them be a win-win for their business, for their employee, right? For whatever the case may be, whatever solution we're trying to provide. And that's just how I like to work. If I'm referring to somebody, it's a win-win because this person can help them solve something else, right? And for me, it's a win-win because they're going to be like, hey, this person, Lorena, really helped me out with XYZ, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of times my clients ask me for like doctor recommendations or like, hey, what hospital, things like that. So I'm also abreast of like things locally here in Miami. Yeah, that can
Yeah.
help
So,
make things.
and again, if this is a professional who's writing lines of business, if they're a financial planner, which I'm sure some financial planners, if it's a real estate professional, mortgage broker, I'm sure some of them as well. Most times you can say, listen, even if you're fairly new, you could say, listen, I'm talking with a lot of clients, and occasionally, it comes across that, someone is looking to refinance, and
Mhm.
I'd really like to learn your approach to that. And if you don't mind, of course, I'd love to share what I do as well. I think you'll find that most professionals will take that meeting and think about this as a business plan, as a marketing plan. If you said, what, my goal is to network with 10 people a week. Now, that might sound scary because you think, ooh, that's going to take a lot of time. Yeah, it is going to take a lot of time to talk with 10 new professionals you can network with. But think of what happens now 40 weeks from 52 weeks from now, we'll do a full year, right?
Mhm.
You have now exchanged information with 520 other professionals who you now, and if you do a good job of organizing your network, right? And you've got a CRM, or you've got a database that you keep, or
Mhm.
maybe you even put it on your website, and you say, here are all the real estate professionals I trust, and you act as a curator, and you say, here's why I recommend this particular person. And that's all you did for a year. Your first year, yeah, you're probably not going to be writing as many policies as the
Right.
person who's just beating the street and just retail sales over and over and over again. Your first year is probably not going to be very successful financially. However, Lorena, what would you imagine if you had 520 people, professionals that you're able to keep in touch with and that you're able to network with and trade and exchange services with and that sort of thing? What do you imagine is going to happen in year 2, 3, 4, and beyond?
Yeah, I think if you continue doing that, right, it's like a compounding effect. You did 520 the first year, the next year would be 1,040, right? And so forth. If you keep that up, your business would definitely explode, because you're just reaching out to more people. And it's not to say that those people that you're networking with, you don't know that could also be a client because they
Oh,
also have
yeah.
needs. So hey, maybe they might not refer you anybody, but maybe you'll get a sale from just networking with them, you know um
Yeah. What I like
so
about that approach too is you're not reaching out to them saying, hey, I'd like to sell you a policy. You're
right.
basically, hey, let's figure out what each other does. I do that all the time. When I book guests on this podcast, for example, I have bought so many books as a result of interviewing my guests because I want to learn more or I need their services. I've purchased a lot of SaaS platforms. I've hired a lot of people as a result of this. It's
Yeah,
and really, I think that is one of the smartest things we could do in business today. Is you need to quadruple your rate or 10x your rate of networking.
exactly. I
Truly,
agree.
truly.
And I think it's actual networking, not like a lot of people say, oh, I have 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. And I'm like, okay, that's
No,
great. How many of those 5,000 have you actually just had a phone call with?
that's right.
Because numbers to me don't mean anything. You could have 1 million followers, great. If you only have 10 likes, to me that doesn't mean anything. And likes, I don't care about that. To me,
I
those are
love this.
metrics.
Lorena
But
Tomasini. Oh, I'm so sorry.
yeah.
I know we're in a hard stop right now. Lorena Tomasini, you are on the web at malmins.com. You write, what policies do you write?
Yeah, so I do a lot of health insurance,
Mm,
individuals and group plans, but on the life side, I'm a broker as well, which means that I represent different companies.
mhm.
I specialize really on life insurance with living benefits, and those could be permanent plans or term plans, depending on the needs. Is that in case of a critical illness or a chronic illness, you can use part of the death benefit now to help you pay for stuff, right? Bills or whatever the case may be. And I also do a lot of cash value life insurance,
Mhm.
which is an interesting way of supplementing your retirement for the future, or some people like to do it for investment purposes to then have cash flow that they can use tax free. So yeah, so I work a lot with business owners as well.
I love it. Well, Lorena Tomasini, you're the owner of MALM Life and Health Insurance, and you're the host of 12-Minute Talks, the podcast. Lorena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on, Josh.